The hot wind swept across the desert of Orvith, carrying sand and sharp waves that stung the skin. Ilara stood at the edge of her village, her hands resting on the straps of her satchel. The sun reflected off the distant mountains, but her gaze was fixed on the sky. A silver shape moved swiftly, cutting through the clouds, its metal surface gleaming like a blade. Varric had arrived. He hovered above the village in his sleek ship, its engines humming like a living creature. Villagers ran, shouting, their fear echoing across the sand. Varric's eyes glowed through the cockpit, scanning the settlement with cold precision. He wanted the dragons, the legendary creatures humans had hidden for centuries. He wanted to show the galaxy that no one could defy him. Ilara did not run. She had read about creatures like Varric, studied their tactics in the dusty archives she tended. Calmly she stepped forward, feeling the tremor beneath her feet. From the depths of the valley, a low rumble responded. She turned her head slightly and Sindral, her dragon, emerged from the rocky outcrops. Its scales shimmered with a deep bronze hue, eyes sharp and intelligent. Smoke drifted lazily from its nostrils. The villagers froze, unsure whether they should cheer or retreat. Varric laughed, a sharp, metallic sound. "Step aside, human," he called, his voice carried by a strange transmitter. "I'm not here to bargain. Hand over the dragon or face the consequences." Ilara's lips curled into a small smile, though her heart raced. She knew the consequences of fighting a being like Varric, yet she also knew the strength that lay behind her calm posture. She raised her hand slightly, a gesture more of command than fear. Behind her, Sindral stepped closer, wings unfurling to reveal the full span of its power. The ground trembled and loose rocks skittered across the sand. Varric tilted his head, amused. "A dragon? You expect that creature to protect you? I have destroyed planets smaller than this village. Your little beast is nothing." Sindral's eyes narrowed, and it let out a low growl that resonated through the valley. The villagers flinched, but Ilara did not move. She whispered words from the archives, a language older than any human had spoken in centuries. The sound rolled over the desert like thunder, and for a moment even the wind seemed to pause. Sindral responded immediately, raising its head and arching its wings further. Varric's smirk faltered. He fired a series of energy blasts toward the dragon, expecting it to falter. But the blasts vanished before reaching their target, absorbed by some invisible force that made the air shimmer. He tried again more aggressively, but each shot met the same fate. The dragon did not dodge. It did not hide. It stood, immense and confident, letting its presence alone push against the alien's aggression. Ilara stepped slightly forward. Her voice, calm and unwavering, carried over the growing tension. "Varric," she said, "you do not understand what you face. Sindral is not just a dragon. It is a guardian and we are bonded. Every action you take against it will bring consequences you cannot imagine." Varric sneered, sending out a wave of drones to attack the village. They hovered like angry hornets, their energy beams cutting into the sand, tearing up the dry earth. Villagers screamed and ducked, trying to find cover, but Ilara stood still, feeling the vibrations of Sindral's movements through the ground. The dragon moved like liquid metal, fast and precise. Its tail swung in arcs that sent drones flying, claws ripped others apart midair, and each movement was in perfect harmony with the whispered words Ilara spoke. She was not shouting, not panicking. Her voice guided Sindral, like a conductor with an orchestra, each command clear and confident. Varric's frustration grew. He had underestimated this human. She did not tremble. She did not beg. And her dragon, it was not merely reacting. It anticipated, it countered, it dominated the battle without even needing to strike fully. Varric tried to push closer to intimidate them both, but the ground itself seemed to resist him. Sand lifted into swirling columns, blocking his path, and rocks shifted to create natural barriers. Sindral's wings flared, creating gusts of wind so strong that Varric's ship rocked in the air. He struggled to maintain control, fury in his glowing eyes. He had faced armies, and yet this one human with her dragon threatened him more than any fleet ever could. Ilara took another step forward, calm as ever. "You see, Varric," she said softly, "humans are not weak, and Sindral is not a weapon you can own. Try to intimidate us and you will see why no one ever does it twice." The words were simple, yet they carried the weight of centuries of human knowledge and the trust between a human and her dragon. Sindral's growl rose, low and dangerous, filling the valley. Varric's hand tightened on the controls, but even he could not deny the truth in what he faced. The villagers began to watch in awe, their fear tempered by wonder. A human had faced an alien warlord, and beside her, a dragon had risen not in fear, but in perfect understanding. Together they were a force beyond technology, beyond intimidation. Varric's eyes narrowed. He would not retreat yet, but the arrogance that had carried him across galaxies faltered. He realized that Alara's calm was not weakness, was control. And the dragon, vast and powerful, was more than a beast. It was an extension of her will, her courage, her intelligence. The sun dipped lower in the sky, casting long shadows over the desert. Alara stood tall, her voice steady, and Sindral's wings folded slightly, a silent promise that it would act only at her command. Varric hovered, trapped in a moment he had not foreseen, facing a human and her dragon who refused to bow, refused to fear, and refused to run. And in that moment it became clear, the aliens' threat would not succeed, not today, not ever. The desert air shimmered with heat as Varric's ship hovered above the village, its engines struggling against the gusts Sindral's wings created. Alara stood firmly, her hand resting lightly on the dragon's scaled neck. The villagers watched from a distance, their fears slowly giving way to cautious hope. None of them had ever seen a human face an alien without trembling. Varric's glowing eyes scanned the valley, narrowing as he realized that the dragon was not acting out of fear. It moved with purpose, each step measured, each breath controlled. He sent another wave of drones, smaller but faster this time, designed to overwhelm any defender. They darted like metal hornets, buzzing around the village, their beams cutting into the sand and small rocks. Sindral's tail swept across the ground, knocking several drones out of the sky. Its claws dug trenches that trapped others, and its wings beat the air with force strong enough to toss remaining drones aside. Alara's voice carried clearly, speaking the ancient words of the archives. They were not spells, not magic, but commands that Sindral understood in a way that went beyond simple language. Each word shaped the dragon's movement, guiding it like a partner in a precise dance. Varric growled, a low, mechanical sound of frustration. He fired energy bolts directly at Sindral, but each strike fizzled in the air, absorbed by some unseen field surrounding the dragon. He tried again, angrier now, but Sindral remained unmoved, standing tall and unyielding. The dragon's wings stretched wider, and a gust of wind knocked Varric's ship slightly off balance. Even the desert sand seemed to rise in columns to block the alien's approach. Alara stepped forward, her calm voice rising over the hum of the engines and the roar of the dragon. "Varric," she said, "you cannot intimidate us. Sindral will not fight blindly. I am not afraid, and the bond we share makes us stronger than you imagine." Varric's smirk faltered. He had faced hundreds of species that feared him instantly. None had stood so still, none had commanded power with such clarity. He sent a pulse wave, hoping to stun the dragon, but the blast fizzled against an invisible barrier around Sindral. The dragon growled, a deep rumble that shook the ground. Rocks lifted from the desert floor, spinning and forming a protective wall around the village. The villagers watched with awe. They had heard legends of humans and dragons working together, but never had they seen it in action. Alara's calm guidance allowed Sindral to act with intelligence, not rage. Every move was precise, every strike intentional. The drones fell one by one, caught or destroyed before they could even reach the villagers. Varric's hands clenched. He had underestimated the human's role. The dragon was powerful, yes, but it followed Alara's commands, her knowledge guiding it. She was not just a rider, she was a strategist, a partner who made Sindral more dangerous than any weapon he had encountered. The dragon's eyes glowed with intelligence. It stepped closer to Varric's ship, its wings flaring to create a massive shadow over the alien. The heat of its body radiated in waves, forcing Varric to adjust his position. The air smelled of ozone and smoke, and the sand beneath the dragon's feet sizzled slightly where its claws dug in. Alara spoke again, her words slow and measured. She pointed toward the sky, and Sindral's wings flared, sending a powerful gust that knocked several of Varric's drones off course. She moved her hand, guiding the dragon's tail to sweep across the desert, scattering more of the alien's machines. Each command was a test, each maneuver a lesson for Varric. He was learning, though not in the way he wanted. "You see," Alara said softly, her eyes fixed on the alien, "Sindral is not just strength. It is intelligence, loyalty, and patience. Try to intimidate, and you will find that you are the one in danger." Varric growled and sent more pulses, desperate now. His ship hovered dangerously close to the edge of the valley. Sindral's eyes followed him calmly, anticipating every movement. The dragon's body shifted slightly and the ground trembled. Varric's ship rocked in the turbulence, alarms flashing across his control panel. Each attempt to gain advantage was met with an immediate response, As if the desert itself, the dragon and Elara acted together as one. The wind rose higher, swirling sand into small tornadoes. Sindral lifted into the air, hovering for a moment, then dove toward the nearest wave of drones. With a swift flick of its wings, it created a sandstorm that tore apart their sensors. Elara's voice rose above the roar. You cannot control us. You cannot scare us. We are not weak. We are stronger than you know. Varric tried one last approach. He opened a compartment in his ship and released a swarm of small insect-like machines, hoping their speed and numbers would overwhelm Sindral. The dragon leapt forward with astonishing speed. Its claws tore through the swarm, and its tail created waves in the sand that trapped the rest. Elara's words guided each movement, and the combined effect was unstoppable. The alien machines were destroyed before they could harm a single villager. The alien hissed, realizing his miscalculation. Elara's calm was not fear, it was confidence. Sindral's power was not random. It was directed, intelligent, unstoppable when guided by the human beside it. Every attack he made was countered before it could succeed. Elara lowered her hands slightly and Sindral settled back onto the desert floor, wings still flared but body relaxed. The villagers stared in disbelief. They had witnessed a dragon protect them, yes, but it was the human who had commanded it, guided it, made it a force that no alien could challenge easily. Varric's eyes glowed brighter with anger, but a small flicker of caution appeared. He had learned something important. Humans and dragons were not just legends or tools to be conquered. They were partners, a combination of intelligence, courage, and strength that no one could intimidate. The desert returned to an uneasy calm. Sand drifted across the footprints of the dragon, the marks of drones destroyed, and the trembling edges of the village. Elara and Sindral remained at the center, calm and unshaken. Varric hovered, frustrated and calculating, unsure how to proceed. And in that moment, it became clear to everyone watching. Intimidation would not work here. The dragon was powerful, but the human beside it was smarter, braver, and unafraid. Together they were a warning to anyone who dared to threaten the people of Orvith. Varric hovered above the village, his glowing eyes scanning the scene below. Every move he made had been countered by Elara and her dragon, Sindral. Drones destroyed, energy bolts fizzling, plans foiled. He was unaccustomed to failure. His pride burned hotter than the desert sun, and he refused to leave until he had forced submission. Elara stood calmly on the cracked sand, her eyes on Varric's ship. Her hand rested lightly on Sindral's neck. The dragon's wings were slightly spread, smoke curling from its nostrils, eyes fixed on the alien. There was no fear in either of them, only anticipation. They were ready for whatever Varric tried next. The alien clenched his hands on the controls and activated a pulse that sent the ground shaking violently. Rocks and sand lifted into the air, forming jagged walls around the village. The villagers screamed and ducked behind small ridges, clutching their families. But Elara did not flinch. She had expected this, had prepared for it. Sindral shifted its weight, claws digging into the earth to keep steady. Varric smiled, thinking he had found an advantage. He sent swarms of faster, sharper drones, ones designed to strike the dragon from multiple angles at once. They darted through the air, buzzing like a swarm of angry insects, their energy blades flashing in the sunlight. The alien expected fear, expected chaos. But Sindral only tilted its head, tracking each machine with precision. Elara spoke softly, her voice calm and measured. She guided Sindral with words older than the village itself, words that taught the dragon exactly how to move. Sindral's tail swept in arcs that knocked drones into the sand. Its claws slashed through others midair, and its wings beat in perfect rhythm to create gusts of wind that threw remaining drones off course. Every action was calculated, every movement precise. Varric's frustration grew. He had anticipated humans being clever, dragons being strong, but he had not accounted for their combination. The bond between Elara and Sindral allowed them to anticipate attacks before they even happened. Every maneuver Varric tried was met with an immediate counter. Each strategy failed. Each attempt brought him closer to chaos. He fired an energy beam directly at Sindral, aiming to force the dragon away from the village. But the beam fizzled, absorbed into some invisible shield. Sindral's eyes glowed brighter, and it let out a low, rumbling growl. The dragon stepped forward, wings creating a shadow that cooled the sand beneath it. Rocks shifted and rose, forming natural barricades that shielded the villagers and made Varric's maneuvers more difficult. Elara moved a step closer, her voice calm and clear. "Varric, Every move you make only shows how little you understand. The bond between humans and dragons cannot be broken by fear or force. You are miscalculating, and every mistake brings you closer to defeat. The alien snarled, releasing a swarm of microdrones that zipped toward the village in a coordinated attack. Syndrol leapt into action, faster than any machine could move. Its tail swung with precision, its wings created blasts of wind, and its claws tore into the machines with ease. Ilara's words guided every movement, predicting the swarm's paths and countering them almost before they existed. Varric's eyes widened in disbelief. He had faced armies, entire planets, and yet one human with a dragon outmaneuvered him effortlessly. His pride demanded action, but his mind recognized the truth he hated. Intimidation would not work here. The dragon was not alone, and the human beside it was more than clever. She was a strategist, a partner, a force that amplified the dragon's power. He tried a new tactic. He sent a pulse wave directly into the village, hoping to stun both human and dragon. The ground quaked violently. Villagers fell to the sand screaming. But Syndrol did not falter. The dragon's body absorbed the shock, its massive form stabilizing the ground under Ilara. She whispered words of guidance, and the tremor lessened, redirected, dissipated into harmless vibrations across the desert floor. Varric realized with growing alarm that he could not intimidate them. Every attack he made was predicted and countered. Every machine, every energy blast, every pulse he sent was neutralized before it could cause real harm. He had miscalculated the intelligence behind the dragon's actions. He had miscalculated the courage and calm of the human controlling it. Syndrol let out a powerful roar that shook the valley. The sound carried not only strength but authority. Rocks jumped from the ground, forming barriers that hemmed in Varric's ship. The wind howled, sand whipped into the air, and the desert itself seemed to rise against the alien. Varric's ship rocked violently, systems sparking under the strain. His confidence faltered as the human-dragon duo proved unstoppable. Ilara's voice rose above the roar of the wind and Syndrol's growl. You see now, Varric, what happens when you misjudge us. Humans are not weak. Dragons are not just beasts. Together, we are stronger than your weapons, stronger than your fleets, stronger than any threat you can imagine. Varric hissed, anger mixing with fear. He had underestimated the bond, the strategy, the intelligence. His plan to intimidate and conquer was falling apart, replaced by the harsh lesson that brute force could not overcome unity and trust. Syndrol moved closer to the alien ship, wings flared, smoke curling from its nostrils. The ground quaked with each step. Varric's drones were destroyed or trapped, his energy blasts useless, his confidence shattered. The villagers began to emerge cautiously from cover, eyes wide in amazement. They had seen their protector not just as a dragon, but as part of a team with Ilara. Together, human and dragon formed a force that no alien could challenge. Varric's arrogance had been his greatest mistake. Ilara stepped forward, calm as ever, hand lightly resting on Syndrol. Every choice you make, every attack only proves how little you understand. You miscalculated us, Varric, and this is your lesson. The alien hovered, his systems overworked, his pride in tatters. He had faced countless species, conquered planets, and yet one human and one dragon had stopped him. Miscalculation had cost him control, cost him confidence, and taught him a lesson he would not soon forget. Syndrol lowered its wings slightly, though its eyes never left Varric. The dragon's body radiated calm strength, waiting only for Ilara's command. The villagers watched, no longer afraid, as the alien hovered above, defeated in ways he could not admit. And in that moment, it became clear. No intimidation, no threat, no display of power could overcome the bond between a human and her dragon. Varric had miscalculated, and the cost of that mistake would shape his understanding forever. The desert heat rippled as Varric's ship hovered above the valley, systems sparking from the strain of Syndrol's power. The alien had tried everything, drones, energy blasts, pulse waves, but nothing had worked. His arrogance had crumbled under the calm control of Ilara and the intelligent might of her dragon. Now frustration burned in him, hotter than the desert sun. He would not leave until he had forced them to bend, but he realized slowly that force alone would not win. Ilara stood at the edge of the village, her hand lightly on Syndrol's neck. She did not shout or tremble. Her voice, calm and steady, guided the dragon as it shifted its weight, eyes tracking every movement of Varric's ship. Behind her, villagers peeked from behind rocks, awe replacing fear. None had ever seen courage like this, not from human or dragon. Varric snarled, opening a compartment in his ship to release a swarm of microdrones, faster and sharper than any before. They darted through the air like swarming hornets, aiming straight for Sindral. The dragon's wings flared, creating gusts strong enough to throw drones off course. Its tail swept across the sand, crushing several of the machines instantly. Claws tore through others midair. Every move was precise, controlled, guided by Ilara's calm voice and her whispered words from the ancient archives. "You see, Varric," Ilara said softly, "intimidation is meaningless. Every attack you make is predicted, countered, and defeated. You cannot break us." Varric's eyes blazed. He had faced armies, war machines, entire fleets, yet one human and one dragon defied him completely. His pride demanded action. He fired a stream of energy bolts at the dragon, hoping to strike fear or force a retreat. The bolts fizzled against an invisible barrier around Sindral, sparks dancing harmlessly in the air. Sindral stepped forward, wings flaring wide, casting a shadow that cooled the desert floor. Smoke drifted from its nostrils as it growled, low and dangerous. Ilara's hand rose and the dragon reared back, wings beating the air with a thunderous rhythm. The desert itself seemed to respond. Loose rocks lifted, spinning into the air like sentinels, forming jagged walls around the village. Varric's ship rocked violently in the turbulent wind, alarms flashing across his controls. The alien realized that every attempt to strike them only strengthened their defense. Varric's frustration turned to desperation. He opened another compartment, releasing a new type of drone designed to explode on contact. They darted like fireflies, aiming for the dragon's legs. Sindral leapt with terrifying speed, claws striking the machines midair, tail sweeping in precise arcs to trap the rest in sand pits. Each movement was coordinated with Ilara's calm commands, each drone neutralized before it could reach the village. The alien realized, too late, that he had miscalculated completely. He had thought Sindral would react with brute force alone, but the dragon moved with intelligence, with strategy. It was not a mindless beast, it was an extension of Ilara's will, her courage, and her knowledge. Ilara took a slow step forward. "Sindral now," she whispered. The dragon's eyes gleamed as it obeyed. It lifted high into the sky, wings spreading wide, casting a massive shadow over Varric's ship. The wind howled around the alien vessel, engines straining. Sindral dove with incredible speed, landing behind the ship. With a powerful roar, it stomped the desert floor, creating a shockwave that threw Varric off balance. His ship rocked, systems sparking, energy pulses failing to respond properly. Varric tried to counter, but it was too late. Sindral leapt again, crushing the ground near his landing pad. Sparks flew from the ship as the dragon's claws scraped along its surface. The alien sent one last desperate wave of energy bolts, but they fizzled harmlessly in the shimmering air. Each move he made only brought him closer to defeat. Ilara's voice rose above the roar of wings and wind. "You underestimated us. You thought fear would work. You thought force alone would succeed. You were wrong." Sindral's eyes glowed brighter and it reared again, smoke curling from its nostrils. With one swift movement, it knocked Varric's ship off balance, forcing it to tilt dangerously. Alarms blared. Systems overloaded. The alien realized fully that he had faced a power beyond his understanding. A human and a dragon, united, had turned his intimidation into failure. The villagers watched, eyes wide, mouths open. The dragon's strike was precise, controlled, and perfectly guided. No one had to shout. No one had to panic. The calm intelligence of Ilara had made Sindral unstoppable, and the display left a lasting impression on all who saw it. Varric's pride shattered as his ship faltered. The alien hovered, barely maintaining control, realizing that aggression alone would never succeed. Ilara stepped closer to Sindral, hand resting lightly on the dragon's scaled neck. She did not need to strike. Her calm presence and the dragon's might were enough. "Leave, Varric," she said softly. "Take this as your lesson. Humans are not weak. Dragons are not just beasts. Together, we are stronger than any threat you can imagine." The alien hesitated, system smoking, pride wounded. He had tried to dominate, to intimidate, to conquer, but he had misjudged them entirely. Sindral lowered its wings slightly, though its eyes remained locked on the alien, a warning and promise combined. The desert slowly returned to calm. Sand drifted back to cover the marks of battle, the footprints of dragons and the remnants of destroyed drones. The villagers stepped out, watching their protector not just as a creature of legend, but as part of a team with Ilara. Together, human and dragon had defended the village without fear, without chaos, and without losing control. Varric hovered, defeated and humiliated, a lesson learned too late. He had tried to intimidate but he had failed. The dragon strike had proven the strength of unity, intelligence, and calm courage. Elara and Sindral stood together, victorious without rage, showing the alien what true power meant. And in that moment, it was clear to everyone watching. Threats, intimidation, and fear had no place here. The dragon strike had changed the course of the battle, teaching that humans and dragons working together were a force no alien could easily challenge. Varric's ship hovered low, engines sparking, systems failing as he stared down at the village below. The alien had tried everything, drones, energy blasts, shock waves, but each attempt had been stopped, destroyed, or turned against him. His pride, once unshakable, now burned like a dying flame. He had underestimated them, misjudged them, and learned the truth too late. Elara stood in the center of the village, calm as ever, her hand resting lightly on Sindral's scaled neck. The dragon's wings were slightly spread, smoke drifting lazily from its nostrils, eyes glowing with intelligence. It had not needed to strike fully to prove its power. The mere combination of their bond, their understanding, and their courage had been enough to defeat Varric. Villagers peeked from behind rocks, eyes wide with amazement, realizing for the first time that humans and dragons together were unstoppable. Varric's voice hissed through his ship's speaker, laced with anger and disbelief. You are only one human and one dragon. How is this possible? Elara's lips curved into a small, calm smile. It is possible because we are united, because we understand each other, because we do not rely on fear or force alone. We are stronger together than you can ever imagine. The alien's hands clenched on his controls. He had thought his power, his weapons, his experience would be enough. But each attack he made had been predicted and countered. Each plan had failed before it could succeed. He had miscalculated entirely, and now he hovered helplessly above a desert that seemed to rise against him. Sindral lowered its wings slightly, though its gaze never left the ship. The dragon's posture was calm, measured, and filled with quiet authority. It had proven its strength, yet it waited for Elara's command. The villagers began to step forward, their awe overcoming fear. They had seen courage, intelligence, and unity in action, and it had saved them. Elara spoke again, her voice calm but firm. Varric, you have tried to intimidate and conquer. You have tried to use fear to control us. But threats do not work here. Humans are not weak and dragons are not just beasts. Together, we are more than you can overcome. The alien glared, his pride battered, his ship barely holding together. Systems sparked and hissed as he realized the truth. Brute force, intimidation, and aggression could not break the bond between a human and her dragon. Sindral had shown him what strength truly meant: intelligence, trust, courage, and calm control. Varric's ship tilted dangerously as he struggled to maintain balance. He had no choice but to retreat. Slowly, carefully, he began to rise, engines groaning under the strain. The alien had learned his lesson, one he would not forget. He had underestimated humanity and the dragons, and he had paid the price for it. Elara watched him go, calm and steady. She did not gloat. There was no celebration in her eyes, only quiet strength. She knew that the lesson was more important than the victory. The villagers began to gather around her, their voices quiet at first, then growing in whispers of wonder and admiration. One by one they came closer, seeing not just the dragon, but the human who had guided it, who had stood unafraid against an alien warlord. Sindral lowered its head slightly, nudging Elara gently with its snout. The dragon had not needed to strike fully to teach Varric the lesson. Its presence, its controlled strength, and the bond with Elara had been enough. Together they embodied a force beyond intimidation or fear. Elara turned to the villagers, her voice carrying across the desert. "Remember this," she said, "strength is not only in power. It is in understanding, in calm, in courage, and in trust. We have faced a threat today and we stood together. That is what makes us strong." The villagers nodded, absorbing her words. They had watched fear become courage, chaos become control, and they had seen the proof that humans were more than they appeared. Dragons were more than legends. And together, they were a force no enemy could conquer with intimidation alone. Varric's ship disappeared over the horizon, small and fragile against the vast desert. The alien would remember this day, the day he tried to intimidate a human and her dragon, and the day he learned that no one could do it twice. He had miscalculated, and the lesson would shape him forever. Elara and Sindral remained in the village, calm and steady. Villagers approached, offering thanks, their eyes wide with respect and wonder. They had seen courage and strength in action, and it had left a lasting impression. Children whispered excitedly about the dragon, about the human who had led it, about the power of unity and trust. Ilara knelt beside Sindral, running her hand along its scales. The dragon nuzzled her gently, smoke curling from its nostrils. They did not need to speak, their bond was enough. The threat had passed, but the lesson remained clear. Strength was not just in weapons or machines. It was in intelligence, courage, calm, and the bonds formed between those who trusted each other. The sun dipped below the mountains, casting long shadows over the village. The desert returned to quiet, the wind sweeping across sand and rock, carrying away the remnants of battle. But the story of what had happened would live on. Humans and dragons together had faced an alien who thought he could intimidate them, and they had won. Ilara stood, calm and confident, looking toward the horizon. Sindral flared its wings once, sending a gust of wind across the desert, then lowered them, resting beside her. Together they were more than legend. They were proof that unity, trust, and courage could overcome any threat. And in that moment the villagers knew the truth. No alien, no enemy, and no threat could break the bond between humans and dragons. Varric had learned the lesson the hard way. But for the people of the village, the lesson was already clear. Courage, calm, and trust were stronger than fear. Strength was not in intimidation. It was in the heart, the mind, and the bond between those who stood together. Ilara looked down at Sindral, her hand resting gently on its scales, and smiled. Together they had faced the impossible. Together they had proven the power of humanity. And together they would stand ready for whatever came next, calm, confident, and unafraid.